Hey, and we're back with another episode of Before You Buy. You know, that show where we give you some straight-up gameplay footage and our first impressions of the latest games releasing. Today we're talking about Redfall. Yeah, thank you for your patience with this one. We didn't get our hands on it super early or anything, so we're hoping our first impressions here can maybe help give you some context or cut through the noise. So, the deal with this one is it's the latest from Arkane, the developers behind classics like the Dishonored games, the newer Prey, and most recently Arkane has seemingly kind of grown and branched out with something different like Deathloop, and now they're trying it again with Redfall. The Xbox and PC exclusive that has been in the works for a while now. And just so you know, the disclaimer up front, we've tested it a bit on PC and Xbox Series X, and most of the footage you see here with the obviously controller gameplay is captured on Xbox Series X and is spoiler-free. We're mostly going to show the opening hours. So here's the bottom line for me, and of course this is my own personal opinion and a matter of taste, but Redfall doesn't do it for me. It hasn't really done it for me since it was previewed, and now after spending time in the final game, I just haven't had much fun. That's it, man. That's why I make these videos. Is the game fun? And Redfall just doesn't have enough juice in it for my liking. Now, I actually disagree with some of the consensus out here. You may have seen videos on social media and headlines about the game being only 30 frames per second and having glitches and bugs and, like, yeah, we'll talk about that in a bit, but that stuff doesn't matter as much to me here. The bigger nail in the coffin is that the game just feels undercooked as a concept. It doesn't have much soul to it, and it isn't very fun. That's it, you know? It's hard for me to put my finger on exactly why. Something about this one just feels like it got lost in translation. You can see some of the spark here and there, the arcane flair, and the game may find some fans, but not really with us here. So what is the game exactly? You know, a lot of people haven't really been clear on that. It's actually just a straightforward open world co-op shooter. You choose from one of 4 quirky, unique characters with their own abilities, and you hop in, exploring, shooting, looting, and conquering the map. You can play it completely single player or hop in with friends. And you're jumping into a town taken over by vampires and their militarized cult followers. Now, you choose between the 4 characters. There's Defender, the kind of techie conspiracy theory guy with sort of Ghostbusters gadgets, which is kind of cool. There's Layla, who's kind of the struggling student type with telekinetic powers. There's Remy, the roboticist with a cool little, Boston Dynamics style killer robot called Bribon. And there's Jacob. He's a kind of mercenary, cool guy with like a cool magic vampire eye and magic sniper powers, and he's got a cool Assassin's Creed hood. Now, I've played as both Defender and Jacob, and Dev's ultimate ability is a bit lame, and he can throw a teleporter object to get you around that is kind of useful, but he feels better paired with another character in co-op to complement his tricks. Jacob was a bit more my style as a solo player. He's got a decent ult, and being able to scan the area for enemies, with a cool bird and an invisibility cloak, he's fairly useful. So that's what most of the gameplay you'll see here is. And the main gist is you have the town of Redfall, this map, and your main base is a fire station in the center. You take on missions and side missions, you venture out and find landmarks for fast travel points, and bigger safe houses you fight to unlock to not only fast travel, but also resupply. You get side missions here typically as well. And along with that, you're also just finding stuff out in the world, you know, interiors to explore, little mysteries to solve, lots of things to read, special vampires to take down, these cool-looking vampire nests, and more. You do all this to level up, get skill points to spend in the skill tree, and, of course, find more powerful weapons, the very occasional cosmetic, and add-ons to just take all the vampires down. And specifically, there's also blood remnants. These are standard ones that you can find in rare occasions, and then special vampire god ones. The standards have different rarity levels and kind of act as perks that bring you various buffs and advantages and trade-offs, while the vampire god ones are way more specific and special. Overall, not bad ideas for the looting and shooting, but the rest of it, the guns themselves, the skill tree, it's stuff we've seen 1,000 times in other games and done better and more exciting. fighting, and that's not even the issue here. It's that the overall loop itself isn't too satisfying. Despite that, gunplay is actually pretty good. You know, it's snappy, it's responsive, maybe not like competitive first-person shooter, but good for some co-op blasting. Although I did find the sensitivity and settings for console to never be quite right, as you can probably tell from my bad gameplay. Aiming was slightly off, and I couldn't quite adjust it to my liking, but that might just be me though. That might be my personal preference. So the shooting doesn't feel too bad. The guns are actually pretty cool and punchy, but for me, it's that a lot of the enemies are really lame. The mercenaries and cult members you face off against occasionally can be lethal, but most of the time are like embarrassingly mindless enemies. They just stand there like fodder. It sounds like it's not a big deal, and I can actually wave that off in other types of games, but here, these shootouts and these enemies are the main focus, and it's painful and glaringly obvious. There's some light stealth, and most of the time you'll be taking out a few enemies here and there, and ultimately it escalates. You need to put in the work to stealth around because it's a very light stealth system, but it also shows you how dumb they are. When you get silenced weapons, it can be a bit more fun at times, but still, sometimes even that's inconsistent. I've shot enemies in the head while other enemies are standing right there and barely even notice. Now, when you're fighting both vampires and humans at the same time, encounters tend to feel kind of messy and awkward. That's because the vampires kind of force you to move around a bit and get more in your face and change up your tactics. Now, credit to the vampires. Fighting them on their own is a bit more special. Some of them can feel a bit dumb at times, but I can't help but appreciate seeing them float around, or maybe they're perched atop a building, scanning the streets. This is where Arkane is Arkane. Just cool vampire designs, from lower level ones to higher level ones that actually really shake up encounters in pretty creative ways. And some bosses, and also these big heavy badass ones that come after you if you raise too much suspicion. Vampires also need to be finished off in special ways. You know, you can't just shoot them to death. Certain weapons have stakes on the end of them that you can kind of use as like a bayonet for finishers, or a few other ways like burning them, or even using a launcher gun that shoots stakes from afar. Kind of cool vampire-y stuff. And the finisher animations are really cool, but damn, I had this weird thing where the frame rate would drop to single digits during a finisher animation, which is a letdown. Along with that, I'd also find myself clipping through building walls during these animations, even if I wasn't even close to a wall. So I don't know what that's about, but I guess it's a good time to mention, the game is 30 frames per second on Xbox Series X. As of right now, this is the one graphical option mode you have. And it's a very disappointing letdown, and I don't know what the deal is with that, because coupled with the fact that visually the game doesn't look so hot, and has a lot of pop in, and just, you know, isn't really too much. And it is a shame, because the town of Redfall is pretty excellent in spots. There are some unnecessarily large empty areas here and there, but there are also plenty of convincing and detailed New England streets with foliage, Halloween decorations, leftover parades, burnt cars, lots of environmental objects to shoot to hurt enemies, cause a little chaos. You know, there is stuff here. And there are also tons of detailed, unique interiors that I keep being surprised by too. There are some weirdly empty ones here and there, but there's a lot of fun stuff, and especially the main and bigger side objectives have at least some spark of Arkane creative level design. We've seen detailed mansions with a blown apart library at the center, lab facilities, big hardware stores, a really cool movie theater encounter, a recording studio. Like, all of it is pretty cool to see, even if what you're doing in them often just isn't very fun. Like, have fun poring over every room a million times looking for a key or a note. That seems like it's about it a lot of the time. Now, I would enjoy just a whatever loop and middling combat encounters because of vampires and a cool spooky town and the vampire nests. You know, I am a sucker for that stuff. But the game doesn't try to loop it all together with a compelling story or characters. They really give you the bare minimum. Like, characters just kind of show up. Most people in the firehouse barely have anything to say. There's no connection at all, and your character is only ever so often fleshed out a little bit with some static cutscenes and voiceovers here and there. Every character has the same intro and like only little line differences here and there. It really actually just kind of feels unfinished. And I'm usually okay with vague storytelling, you know? Our Arkane writers come up with some cool notes and diary entries and stuff that you find here, and there are actually some underlying lore bits that are actually pretty cool. The main vampires you have to take down here have some good story to them, and even the creation of the vampires themselves is a bit different here, and interesting. But all that stuff kind of feels like it takes a back seat, and it's just not enough when the game isn't necessarily a blast to play to begin with. Now, it is great that you can play it completely single player, props to them for that, but it feels like a game really set up for co-op, from the way the abilities work to just the fact that it can be a little bit lonely at times, and like with not a lot of story, it feels kind of quiet. So while, yes, from a technical standpoint, Redfall can use some work, it's not like Jedi Survivor. That was a game with some technical problems that were muddying a great game. Redfall is a game with technical problems that don't really bother me because I can see that the game underneath just feels like a game that didn't quite come together. Arkane makes some great games, and they have great ideas, and some of those ideas are here, but it feels like some got lost along the way or muddled because I don't quite know what this is or really what they were going for here. I don't feel the objective. I can see where the appeal could be with Redfall. Like I said, I like a lot of this stuff. Some of the Arkane is there in the lore and the writing and the optional stuff. The designs of the vampires and some cool characters look really neat and distinct, and the town has possibilities. But it just boils down to a really simple, straightforward, open-world looter-shooter with uncompelling gameplay loops from just like the middling combat to just okay weapons and loot and dull, simple progression. If it sounds like I'm being hard on this one, maybe I am. Like maybe if you hop in on Game Pass with a friend and don't take it too seriously, you might have a bit of fun. But if you're a stickler for your time and money and experience, Redfall doesn't try too hard. And if you're ponying up some cash and considering playing alone, I don't recommend it right now at its state. Maybe there's a director's cut somewhere down the line that has all those ideas put in, but as of right now, the time we've spent with Redfall, our first impressions aren't so good. But hey, that's it. That's a before you buy. You know how this goes by now. We give you some pros, some cons, and some personal opinion, and now we want to hear yours down in the comments, because we were pretty rough on Redfall, but maybe you're playing it and you're having a great time. Every game needs a defense force, so let us know what you think. If you're playing and you're disappointed, we'd love to hear whether it's from a technical standpoint or a gameplay standpoint, but let's talk anything Redfall, from who you're playing as to just your favorite Arkane game. Down in the comments, there's a lot we can touch upon. So if this helped you out, maybe gave you some info before jumping into the game, clicking the like button helps us out. We'd really appreciate that. But if you're new, consider subscribing and hitting that notification bell, man, because we put out videos every single day. But either way, as always, thank you for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.